Good evening, everyone. My name is Dan Gellman. I am the Senior Director of Marketing for High Focus Centers. On behalf of Nami Mercer and High Focus Centers, welcome to our collaborative webinar, Connection and Coping, Essential Strategies for On-the-Go or Shelter-in-Place, an appropriate title for right now. I'd like to introduce the other people that you see on the screen here. First, we have Janet Haag, who is the Executive Director of Nami Mercer. We also have Lindsay, who is the Executive Director of High Focus Centers in Lawrenceville. And we also have tonight's presenter, Jaimie Farkas, the Coordinator of Adult Services at High Focus Centers, also in Lawrenceville. So one housekeeping item I'd like to go over before we dive in, and that's we'd like to make this somewhat of an interactive presentation if possible. And although you won't be able to be on video or speak, you're certainly able to type in questions or comments. And the best way to do that is through the chat box. And you should be able to access that chat feature on the right-hand side of your screen. And feel free to do that at any time. And we'll be watching that, and we'll definitely be happy to speak to your comments or answer your questions. So as far as the purpose for tonight's presentation, we know that the last couple of months have been a really difficult time. It's been really hard due to a lot of unknown, a lot of additional stressors, both in the home and obviously, outside factors that are stressing people out. And both for people that have never experienced any type of mental illness, as well as people who have had mental health issues in the past and are recovering from them, it's a difficult time when people are prone to experiencing some heightened symptoms, some more symptoms that they haven't experienced in a while or maybe have never experienced before. And the purpose of our presentation is to give some tangible skills, some skills for on the go or shelter in place that as soon as we're done with the presentation, you'll be able to use, and they can help to provide some relief. So just a quick background on High Focus Centers. We've been around for 25 years. We have 8 locations, 7 in New Jersey, and as mentioned, there's one that Lindsay and Jaimie they run in Lawrenceville. And our programs operate treatment at the partial care and intensive outpatient levels of care. And what that means is there's several groups a week, several days per week. There's group therapy, individual, family therapy, as well as psychiatric services. So generally, people come to us when they're having some trouble functioning in their day-to-day living. And the goal of our program is to help stabilize those symptoms and help people return to productive living in their day-to-day lives. So one thing that's really important to High Focus is to be able to give back to community, to help support other agencies in the community, providers in the community, but most importantly, just the community members like yourselves, and help provide some education and skill sets for dealing with mental illness and also substance use disorders. So I also want to give a special thank you to Nami Mercer for partnering with us on this event and for giving us a platform to help support the community. So thank you to Nami Mercer, and with that, I'd like to pass it on to Janet Haag to just give some background on her organization.
So thanks so much, Dan, and the thank you is back at you as well, because we wouldn't be here without this wonderful partnership with you, and we're very, very grateful. We've known each other for a long time, and it's really nice to be able to really be working with you directly on. I also wanted to say that, I wonder what's happening.
I do hear the feedback.
Yeah, I don't know what that's all. Oh, there we go.
Better.
So I just wanted to say that Nami Mercer is currently, we are a grassroots organization, obviously. We are a robust local affiliate of NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness. And we do offer education, support, and advocacy programs. All of our support groups and some of our educational programs are currently being done virtually online. If anybody's interested in anything, you can go and check our website at www.namimercer.org, and you will find most of the information that you need right on the homepage. And there are oftentimes the links to various groups that you want to get on are right there on that homepage. So if you click on the slider, it will literally take you to the page that you need to be able to then join the meeting. So that's where we are right now. We're trying to meet the needs of the community as best we can. And we really invite you to look and see what's available to you and take advantage of whatever you can. I'm going to make a small pitch to say that Nami Mercer's walk is virtual this year. And so if you want to be a virtual walker, again, if you go to the website, you're able to find that under Get Involved, and you can join us virtually, post a picture of yourself walking, contribute if you're able, or solicit other people to contribute. And then the other thing is that on May the 31st, that's the last day of the month, last day of Mental Health Month, at 4 o'clock that day, there will be a really wonderful concert with a mezzo-soprano who is highly acclaimed. Her name is Solange. She will be singing songs for about 25 minutes to 30 minutes that are intended to provide some hope and comfort to us at this time. So make sure that you tune in for that. So again, thank you to our good friends from High Focus Center. And with that, I want to pass it over to our presenter for the evening, and that's Jaimie Farkas. Thanks, everybody. Glad you're joining us.
All right, so we should all be able to see the PowerPoint. The title of our presentation today is Connection and Coping, Essential Strategies for On the Go or Shelter in Place. And as Dan mentioned, we do have some goals for tonight. The first goal is to, of course, educate you all on practical ways to tend to your mental health, provide coping skills and tools to utilize from the comfort of your own home, and learn about ways to build support during a time of isolation. So the first slide, and most important slide, is what is mental health? So a mental illness is a condition that affects a person's way of thinking, feeling, their behaviors, or their overall mood. These conditions can deeply impact day-to-day living and also may affect the ability to relate to others in our relationships or in our day-to-day lives and responsibilities like going to work or going to school. Mental health conditions are far more common than you think, mainly because people don't like to or are scared to talk with them. It is most important for us to really talk about and focus on our mental health at this time due to the lack of physical social connections that we're having, an increased sense of worry and fear and nervousness, and also the lack of support that we have from the specific people, places, and things that really contribute to our day-to-day overall mental health. So some statistics regarding mental health are found on this presentation. So 1 in 5 U.S. adults experience mental illness each year. 1 in 25 U.S. adults experience serious mental illness each year. 1 in 6 U.S. youth aged 6 to 17 experience a mental health disorder each year, and 50% of all lifetime mental illness begins by age 14 and 75% by age 24. So really taking the time to focus on our overall mental health will hopefully lead to a stronger emotional, physical, and spiritual health as well. So the next area that we are going to focus on is overall mental health and relapse, and our desire to reduce our vulnerabilities to experiencing an increase in mental health symptoms or leading to a relapse. I want to make sure that I indicate that a relapse does not only come into play when we're talking about substance use or addictive behaviors. We can also experience a relapse in our mental health symptoms. So as we are talking about reducing our vulnerabilities, throughout this presentation, we're going to talk about ways that we can work towards ensuring daily maintenance So specific tasks and tools that we can do and engage in to be able to reduce our vulnerabilities to experiencing out of control or very intense symptoms of mental health. So some factors that we are going to focus on are mental, physical, and emotional health, ways to strengthen the connection between our mind and body. We're going to talk about avoiding any mood-altering substances, ways to connect to others, some stress-relieving activities and self-soothing techniques, and also, of course, talking about ways to engage in activities that empower us or make us happy during a time of isolation. So this means that by addressing some of these factors, people can reduce their symptoms and relapses and improve the course of their mental health or co-occurring disorders. So we're going to transition into a slide to talk a little bit more about what daily maintenance planning is. This is a phrase that I like to use when talking about relapse prevention and really focusing on preventing relapse. Instead of working on intervening, we want to do what we can to prevent and reduce our vulnerabilities to experiencing a relapse. So daily maintenance planning. What do I need to do every day to stay well? This list that I have created is very small. We can, as a group, probably think of a lot of different things that we need to do every day to maintain a sense of mental, emotional, and physical safety and well-being. I'm only just going to highlight a few. So daily maintenance tasks are things that we need to do daily for ourselves to maintain that sense of steadiness and stability in our day-to-day functioning. So some of these areas that we should consider when discussing daily maintenance planning might include the amount of hours that we sleep each night, healthy eating habits and nutrition, so eating 3 meals a day, making sure that we are fueling our body when it's hungry. As we know, food is fuel. Connecting to others and engaging in relationships, so reaching out to our support systems, making friends, connecting with our colleagues or our peers, or connecting with pets, as they are very important things to have relationships with as well. Engaging in physical exercise, really focusing on that mind-body connection. Taking vitamins and taking medications, whether they are psychotropic or medical-based medications. Engaging in prayer, spirituality, meditation, keeping the relationship that we have with our higher power. Taking time to practice gratitude and appreciation. When we practice gratitude and show thanks, we actually allow for some chemicals in our body to be released, some of those feel-good chemicals. So taking the time to smile, to laugh, to go out of our way to make others smile and laugh can be very important to our overall mental health. And engaging in our day-to-day activities like going to work, going to school, tending to our household responsibilities. Most importantly, following a day-to-day routine. In a time of isolation, a lot of us are home or at our residence. So taking the time to really follow a routine and spend some time engaging in some of these activities that are going to ensure a sense of decreased anxiety or decreased stress. So some of the ways that we can build a sense of resiliency when it comes to stabilizing and maintaining our mental health are developing effective coping skills for managing stress and or an increase or persistent symptoms, getting involved in meaningful activities, so doing things that you enjoy, whether that's dancing or yoga or gardening or going on walks, taking the time to really do the things that we enjoy, and building socially supportive relationships that help ourselves manage, that allows for others to listen and to provide us feedback. So I want to take a moment and hopefully we can use the chat feature. I'm unable to see the chat feature at this time, so I'm going to rely on Lindsay if maybe she can give me some assistance. If some of you all would share some of the daily maintenance things that you do on a day-to-day basis that help maintain a sense of stability or structure for your day-to-day. As I said, my list is very small, and there are a lot of things that I'm sure that you are all doing each day to stay well. If we don't have anyone responding in the chat feature, that's okay. I will continue on with the presentation, and Lindsay or Dan or Janet, please don't hesitate to stop me if we have a question or a comment.
Jaimie, at times there is a little bit of a delay.
Okay.
So maybe just give it like a couple more seconds and.
Sure. Absolutely.
And otherwise, if I see anything, I'll let you know.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, we are going to go into the next slide. So we're going to talk about an acronym. This is a very important acronym when it comes to our mental health, and the acronym is HOLT. The acronym HOLT is a tool that will help you to remember self-care. HOLT is used to help remember specific areas that may be high-risk times for relapse. When we're hungry, when we're angry, when we're lonely or lacking social connection, or when we're tired, both physically or mentally. So addressing these 4 areas are going to be really important when it comes to not only our daily maintenance, but helping us identify our potential triggers or stressors that might lead to an increase in stress or anxiety or frustration. So first, we're going to focus on H for hungry. So as we know, eating 3 meals a day can be very important for our overall body. Food is fuel. Food helps us to maintain a sense of communication, working, sleeping, making sure that our mind and our body are both connected and working at the best way that they can. So ways that we can ensure that we are addressing this area are by eating a balanced diet, allowing foods that have nutrients to be a part of our diet and routine. We can also prepare meals or snacks ahead of time to ensure that on some of our busier days, we are still taking the time to eat and fuel our body, and also following a consistent eating schedule. I know sometimes a day can go by and we forget to eat or drink some water, but making sure that we are fueling our body so that we are working to the best of our ability. When it comes
Jaimie.
Yes.
Hey, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I just wanted to piggyback off of that because someone had said that one of the things that they often do is take short, like 60-second breaks throughout their day. And taking those breaks, I think, are really helpful. But even taking a little bit longer of a 60-second break to make sure you're eating, which Jaimie is talking about, that sometimes we forget to do, is really important too. So thank you for that feedback.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I don't know about all of you, but sometimes when I am hungry, that can also lead to feelings of anger, which you might call hangry. So addressing the anger portion of HOLT is really important because we want to be able to identify our triggers to anger. So what does lead to feelings of anger? What are some of the physical symptoms that we may be experiencing that are telling us that we should probably pay attention? That might mean having clenched fists. It might mean that our jaw is clenched or our shoulders are raised. So being really aware of what our body is telling us when we are angry can be really important. Anger is also known as a secondary emotion. So that means that there are usually other emotions that are underlying anger. They can be sadness, frustration, anxiety, jealousy, and recognizing that sometimes our body is going to react in a way that might come off as anger, but being able to identify what might be that underlying emotion can be very helpful to us in making sure that we are tending to those emotions. So some ways that we can cope with anger are going for a walk. It might be journaling. It might mean calling a friend. It might mean taking a 60-second break to calm ourselves down. It might mean distracting ourselves or walking away from a situation, but ensuring that we are addressing those feelings of anger so they don't come out of control and turn into rage. So tending to both hunger and anger, very important. The area that I think is really important for us to focus on now is this area of loneliness. You know, right now we are in a place where isolation is encouraged, and that can be very difficult for us as human beings, as we are social creatures. We are social beings who need to connect, who need to communicate, who need to experience physical touch. And that can be really difficult when we are isolating. So we're going to talk a little bit further in this presentation about ways to connect and build a support system. But some of the things that we can talk about now do include social supports. So engaging with family, friends, loved ones, support systems, whether that's via the internet, via social media, via telecalls like Zoom, and really taking the time to connect to others. As I said, as we are in a time of isolation, it can be very easy to isolate ourselves as well. So practicing opposite action, one of probably the most important skills when it comes to loneliness and isolation, is essentially doing the opposite of what we want to do. So if we have that urge to stay home, to stay in our bed, to shut our door, doing the complete opposite of that might mean making a phone call, going to a meeting, logging in to a virtual Nami meeting or a 12-step meeting. It might mean going for a walk and waving to our neighbors as we are walking. So really challenging ourselves to still connect with others. And lastly, the T for tired, making sure that we're getting ample sleep. For an average adult, we should be receiving somewhere between 6 to 8 hours of sleep. Sleep is a time that we allow our body to recharge and to re-energize for the next day. When we have a lack of sleep, we can lead to an increased sense of irritability, an increased sense of anger or frustration. We might even have a low frustration tolerance. So ensuring that we are allowing our bodies to get the rest that it needs is really important when it comes to taking care of our mental health. When we talk about sleep, we want to really focus on ensuring that we have a consistent sleep routine. Sometimes we can't always go to bed and wake up at the same time, but working to try to ensure that we are following somewhat of a pretty consistent sleep routine. So getting the same amount of sleep at night or following a routine before we go to bed, whether that means stretching or going for a walk or drinking a warm glass of tea, but really taking the time to allow our bodies to relax as we go to sleep. As I'm sure we all know, we can't just jump into bed and close our eyes and we're asleep. So making sure that we are tending to our body and to our mind to ensure that we are able to get a good amount of sleep. So that is all I have for Holt. We are going to transition over into the next slide. So we're going to talk about mindfulness. Mindfulness is a basic human ability to be fully present, aware of where we are and what we're doing, and not overly reactive or overwhelmed by what's going on around us. So the idea of being in the present is derived from being mindful and often requires several things. An intentional, conscious effort to consider what we are going through or experiencing, accepting those feelings as we are, and allowing ourselves to reflect without being judgmental towards those thoughts or feelings that we're experiencing. When we practice mindfulness, we're practicing the art of creating a space for ourselves. We're allowing ourselves to be kind and compassionate with ourselves, to give ourselves a moment to breathe, to think clearly, and to put space between our intense emotions and ourselves. So I talk about mindfulness because it can be difficult to practice mindfulness when we are experiencing racing thoughts or worrying thoughts or nervous thoughts. So really taking the time to work to get to a state of being present with our moment so that we're able to enjoy and be in a moment. So mindfulness helps individuals develop a better way to regulate their emotions and thoughts. The most important component of mindfulness is developing the awareness necessary to avoid being carried away by those negative thoughts or feelings. So as we talk about mindfulness, we're going to go a step further and talk about skills and tools as to how to maintain and get to that state of mindfulness and presence. So I want to go into the next slide where we're going to talk about grounding skills. So mindfulness is different from grounding skills in the way that mindfulness is a state of being. Grounding is the act that helps us to get us to that state of mindfulness. There are 3 different types of grounding skills that we're going to talk about. They are mental grounding, so they focus on the mind. Physical grounding, meaning they focus on the senses. And self-soothing, focusing on increasing our sense of comfort through kindness and compassion. So we're going to talk a little bit more about self-soothing, as I really want us to be able to use some of these skills from the comfort of our own home so we can bring ourselves a sense of comfort in some difficult times. So grounding exercises are things that you can do to bring yourself into contact with the present moment and ensure a sense of safety. They can be quick strategies or more formal exercises. Different strategies work for different people, and there's no wrong way to ground yourself. Our main aim is to keep our mind and our body connected and working together. Grounding skills help us come back to the moment. They tend to use our senses, the 5 different senses, and help to ensure that we can bring ourselves back to the moment. When we're experiencing anxiety or worry, we're somewhere in the future. If we are reflecting on sad moments or frustrating moments, we're usually somewhere in the past. So using grounding skills can really help bring us back to the moment and allow us to increase our sense of decision-making, increase our ability to communicate our needs, but also to help gain insight and awareness. So I'm going to transition and talk a little bit further about ways in which we can self-soothe. So self-soothing skills help individuals cope with overwhelming or negative thoughts, as do all grounding skills. They help us with not only our thoughts, but our emotions and our experiences as well. They are techniques that incorporate the body senses to help comfort oneself, and they're skills that help us feel better in the moment. So I have identified the 5 senses and some ways that we as individuals can use tools and things from our own homes to work on self-soothing. So we're going to talk about the 5 different senses. I encourage you as I'm going through the different senses to please share ways in which you self-soothe through the chat feature. And maybe after I'm finished, we can have some of the other presenters share some of the items that you have identified. So when it comes to sight, we can read a book. We can look at pictures of loved ones. We can watch something that makes us laugh. We can go outside and watch the clouds, or we could use visualization or imagery. Doing this allows our mind to connect with the present. We can't read the words on a book if we are not focused and our head isn't in that book. So taking the time to really use our senses and use all of the different senses to help calm ourselves is going to be very helpful for us. When it comes to sound, we might listen to soothing music. We might listen to a comedy skit. We might meditate. We might listen to a virtual concert or listen to a band playing. Or we might also say some positive affirmations out loud to ourselves. Again, as we are grounding and self-soothing, we're allowing ourselves to get to a state of mindfulness. And that is our ideal state to be in when experiencing some of these extreme thoughts or emotions. When talking about taste, we might practice mindfulness by eating mindfully and really focusing on the texture and the taste of the food that we're eating. We might chew gum. We might keep mints readily available. We might have a go-to comfort snack that just makes us feel good. Or we might drink hot coffee or tea or maybe an ice drink too. But really taking the time to experience what that sense is doing for us and how that helps connect us to the present moment. When it comes to touch, we may run cold water over our hands. We might hold some ice cubes in our hands. We might pet a pet. We might use a weighted blanket. We might sit in the sunshine and get the rays from the sun on our skin for some time, or we might wear some comfortable clothes. Taking the time to really soothe ourselves is very important for maintaining a sense of safety with ourselves and our thoughts and emotions that we're experiencing. And the last sense, smell. We can light a scented candle. We can cook or we can bake and smell the ingredients of what we're cooking or baking. We might use essential oils, or we might practice deep breathing. These are, as I mentioned, not the whole list of self-soothe skills that we can use, but all of these different skills are things that you can do from the comfort of your own home. And I know that right now we can't necessarily use the skills that maybe are outside of our home or engage with the people who help soothe us, but really taking the time to recognize that you have all of these things available to you in your home that can help ensure a sense of comfort and soothing. So it is important to note that we may need to use various self-soothing skills or techniques, and it can take some practice and patience. I'm not going to say that using one of these skills is going to reduce the intensity or the racing thoughts that we're experiencing, but it's giving us a sense of comfort. We might need to use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of these skills or use them over and over again. But every time you choose to use one of these skills, you're choosing to take care of yourself. And that's a pretty important decision to make. Did we have anyone share any of their own self-soothing skills in the chat feature? If not, I can keep it.
One of the things that I like to note about self-soothe skills is that you might be thinking to yourself, these seem so simple. You know, is this really gonna do anything for me when I'm feeling stressed out or, you know, having a lot of negative thoughts? And, you know, I really encourage you to think about how you feel when you smell fresh baked cookies for that moment, and how that brings a smile to your face. Or, you know, for those coffee lovers like myself, first thing in the morning when you're really tired, how that feels to just have that smell of coffee or that taste of coffee, and how just in that moment, if you're mindful about it, how it can take the edge off. So I always like to point that out for self-soothe, and kind of just going off what Jaimie said, that it's not a fixing of everything that you're feeling, but it's definitely something to actually soothe you in the moment. Some things that people said, Jaimie, they pet their dog, which I can completely relate to, although I have cats, and working outside in the yard, which is a great distraction. We have someone else who loves to knit, draw, and read. And I agree with that. Reading is a great way to not only keep your mind and your eyes busy, but also kind of disconnect a little bit. So these are great suggestions. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. So we're actually going to do a self-soothing skill as a group. So we are going to do the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 skill. This is a very simple yet powerful skill. So I'm going to encourage you all, I know I can't see you, but I'm going to encourage you to ground yourself, put your feet on the floor, and follow along with the prompts that I'm giving you. So we are going to start with sight, and I'm going to challenge you to look around for 5 things that you can see, and you can either say them out loud to yourself or you can just say them to yourself in your mind. For example, you can see, I see the computer, I see the cup, I see the dog. So take a couple moments to find those 5 things that you can see. Next, we're going to go to touch. So as your feet are on the ground, pay attention to your body and think of the 4 things that you can feel. Either think them to yourself, say them out loud. For example, we might feel our feet on the ground. We might feel our socks. We might feel our hair on the back of our neck. Take a moment, think of those 4 things that are around you that you can feel. Next, we're going to listen for 3 sounds. This could be the sound of the TV in the background. It could be the sound of cars driving by, or it could be the sound of your tummy rumbling, telling you it's ready for dinner. So take a moment and listen for the 3 sounds that you can hear. Next, think of or say out loud 2 things that you can smell. And lastly, 1 thing that you can taste. It may be toothpaste or it may be a mint from after lunch. Say that out loud or to yourself. So as I said, this is a very simple technique. This is something that we can do and no one else needs to know that we're doing it. This gives us somewhere about 20 to 40 seconds of a moment to really challenge ourselves to be present and mindful in the moment. It has us open our eyes and it has us engage all of our senses to help bring ourselves to the moment. I'm sure as you were looking for 5 things around the room or listening for 3 different sounds, your mind wasn't thinking about what you're having for breakfast tomorrow or maybe that big project that's coming up at work. It gives your mind and your body some time to just focus on what's in front of you. This is one of my favorite coping skills, and I definitely encourage you to try it. You know, you can do this when you're watching TV. You can do this at dinner. You can do this while you're in a meeting or while you're sitting in a waiting room somewhere. But challenging yourself to really use your 5 senses to help bringing yourself back to the moment is fantastic. So next we're going to go into 1 more coping skill. We are going to talk about square breathing. So taking a few moments to concentrate and breathe deeply calms not only your mind, but your body. Breathing can be so powerful. It helps bring oxygen to our body and make sure that our whole body is receiving oxygen. Square breathing is just one breathing technique that we like to talk about, and it's a really great way to refocus your mind. So I'm going to challenge you all. I know you can see the presentation on the screen. I'm going to ask that you take out your hand, and I'm going to have you follow along the square. So I'm going to have you start in the top left-hand corner. Keep your finger on that corner, and I'm going to ask that after you put your feet on the ground, both feet on the ground, hands in your lap or next to you, I'm going to ask that you inhale for 4 seconds. And as you do that, I want you to drag your finger across that first line of the square. So take a moment for 4 seconds. And then I'm going to challenge you to hold. So hold in that deep breath for 4 seconds. Drag your finger along down to the bottom right-hand corner. And then I'm going to ask that you exhale for 4 seconds. And during those 4 seconds, drag your finger across to the bottom left-hand corner. And then I'm going to challenge you to rest. So as you are taking those 4 seconds, just dragging your finger up, and you are back to where you started. So this is something, again, that you can do with a visual aid. If it is a square, you can also imagine it or use your visualization to see the square. I encourage you, if this is a skill that you want to start practicing and build a sense of mastery for, I recommend using a visual aid at first. And once you feel ready, you can practice it with visualization or from the mind. But again, this is a very simple yet powerful skill that challenges you to focus on your breath for about 15 seconds or so and grounds you back to the moment. There are various other different... I'm sorry, Lindsay.
One thing I just really want to mention about square breathing, whether you're trying it yourself or you're teaching it to somebody else, is sometimes if you're really anxious and you try and do this exercise, you might feel like, oh, I'm doing it wrong, or I can't hold my breath for that long. First and foremost, if you're trying it, you're not doing it wrong because you're breathing, and that's what's important. And secondly, if you are somebody that's finding it a little bit challenging at first, you can shorten the amount of seconds, or if you have any type of medical issues, just make sure that you're paying attention to your body and how you feel. But you're certainly not doing it wrong because breathing is something we do every day.
It's true. It's true. Thanks, Lindsay. But yeah, there are various different types of breathing techniques. And if this one doesn't work for you, I encourage you to Google them, look them up. There are various different ways to really focus on the breath and focus on breathing. And as Lindsay said, you can't do it wrong. You know, we have to breathe. We need oxygen in our body. So taking the time to really focus on our breath can be really important. So I am going to go into the next slide where we're going to talk a little bit about social support. So as I mentioned, this is very important for us as social distancing has really changed how we're interacting with people that we care about, those people in our support system, our coworkers, our peers, even our doctors or those at our local restaurants. So there are many ways that we can build a sense of connection with others, even if we can't see these people or go to the places that we usually would for support. So some suggestions: making sure you have phone numbers and emails of those in your support network, making sure that you're staying connected to them via phone call, via text, via email, staying connected with them. So maybe that's following up with them after they had a hard day or reaching out for help when we need it. But taking the time to reach out to others to ensure that we are communicating, that we are also listening, because that's an important part of communication, but really making sure that we're taking care of ourselves and that need to connect. I encourage you to share how you're feeling with people that you trust. You can utilize support lines, hotlines, your counselors, your doctors, your sober peers, whoever they might be. Participating in virtual activities, that might mean going on a virtual tour of a museum or a virtual tour of another country, taking time to listen to some online shows or concerts that people are performing for. And I've even seen some that you can color mandalas online. So taking time to really look for what is out there so that we can participate and still engage in the things that we once did when we weren't social distancing and in isolation. But most importantly, finding a sense of community. This could be mental health focused, addiction focused, or spiritual and religious focused, but finding a group of people who know us, who support us, who relate to us, and who share the same values with us. To remember that you're not alone and we're not alone, and we are getting through this every day, but really taking the time to prioritize the aspect of support. When it comes to Holt, when it comes to connecting, when it comes to being honest and asking for help. So really taking that time to benefit from your support system or creating a new one. Lastly, I want to share some resources that are available to you. There are various different suicide prevention hotlines, hope lines, warm lines. There are also some community-based resources like NAMI and DBSA, also some 12-step support, whether that's refuge recovery, smart recovery, AA, NA. But again, reaching out, utilizing the support that is available to you, and making sure that you are connecting with others and letting them know what you need. So this ends my presentation. As I and the team are hoping for you, we hope that you just take one thing away from this presentation if you can. And we encourage you to try to use some of these self-soothing skills and work on getting to practicing mindfulness and mindful activities. So I am going to stop sharing my screen. So if anyone does have questions, we can answer them, and then we can the presenters, show our faces before we wrap up for today.
So we did have somebody also point out that Gamblers Anonymous is also available. So that's an additional resource for people in the community. And I, as the executive director in Lawrenceville for High Focus Centers, I really appreciate everybody who took time today to practice a little self-care, get a little education, and learn some hopefully new coping strategies that you can do by yourself, with your family, or share really with anybody that you think might need it. So thank you so much to Nami Mercer for collaborating with us on this effort. And of course to our staff at High Focus Centers in Lawrenceville for presenting this information. And a special thanks to all of you in the community who joined us tonight. Thank you so much. Be safe, and we will all get through this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Have a great night.
You too. Bye.